Welcome, everyone. Today, I'd like to take you on a voyage back in time, over 600 years ago, to an era when China was a dominant force in world exploration, long before the voyages of Columbus or Magellan. Our story centers around a man who, for a long time, was shrouded in mystery, his accomplishments largely forgotten outside of his homeland. I'm talking about Zheng He, a Chinese admiral whose legendary voyages have sparked curiosity, admiration, and even skepticism in the centuries since they occurred. Zheng He's story is not just a tale of exploration, it's a story of power, ambition, and the far-reaching influence of an empire that was once the most advanced civilization on Earth. Yet, for many years, the true scale of Zheng He's achievements was doubted by some scholars in the West, who believed the claims of China's naval prowess in the early 15th century were exaggerated. Today, I want to walk you through the details of these incredible voyages and show you why they are not only real, but also one of the most remarkable feats in maritime history. To understand Zheng He, we need to start with a bit of background. Zheng He was born in 1371 in what is now Yunnan province in China. He was originally named Ma He and was of Muslim descent, a fact that would later play a role in his ability to navigate the diverse cultures of the Indian Ocean. At a young age, Ma He was captured by the Ming dynasty's forces during their conquest of Yunnan, and he was castrated and sent to serve in the imperial court as a eunuch. Despite the harsh circumstances, Ma He quickly distinguished himself through his intelligence, bravery, and loyalty. He rose through the ranks and eventually became a trusted advisor to the Yongle Emperor, one of the most powerful and ambitious rulers in Chinese history. In 1405, the Yongle Emperor commissioned Zheng He, now renamed and elevated to the rank of admiral, to lead a series of voyages to project Chinese power and influence across the seas. These voyages were unlike anything the world had seen before. They were massive in scale, involving fleets of ships so large that they dwarfed anything Europe could muster at the time. The flagship of Zheng He's fleet, known as a treasure ship, was said to be over 400 feet long, nearly 5 times the length of Columbus's Santa Maria. And this was just one of the hundreds of ships that sailed under Zheng He's command. The 7 voyages. Zheng He embarked on 7 major voyages between 1405 and 1433, spanning nearly 3 decades. These voyages took him and his fleet to Southeast Asia, the Indian subcontinent, the Arabian Peninsula, and even the east coast of Africa. The scale of these expeditions was unprecedented. It's estimated that the fleet could include up to 300 ships and as many as 28,000 sailors, soldiers, diplomats, and scholars on a single voyage. Now, what was the purpose of these voyages? Unlike the European explorers who would later sail across the Atlantic in search of new lands to conquer and colonize, Zheng He's missions were not about conquest. Instead, they were diplomatic in nature. Zheng He's fleet brought gifts from the Chinese emperor, silks, porcelains, and other treasures, to the rulers of the lands they visited. In return, these rulers offered tributes to the Chinese emperor, acknowledging his supremacy and establishing diplomatic ties. But let's not be mistaken, these voyages were also a demonstration of power. The sheer size of Zheng He's fleet sent a clear message. The Ming dynasty was the most powerful empire in the world, and it could project that power across vast distances. In some cases, the fleet was used to enforce Chinese interests, such as when Zheng He intervened in a civil war in Sri Lanka, or when he dealt with pirates who threatened Chinese trade routes. Beyond politics and power, Zheng He's voyages were a significant moment of cultural exchange. As his ships sailed from port to port, they facilitated the exchange of ideas, technologies, and goods. Chinese silk and porcelain became highly prized commodities in the markets of the Indian Ocean, while exotic animals, such as giraffes from Africa, were brought back to the Chinese court and became the subjects of fascination. Zheng He himself, being of Muslim heritage, was well equipped to navigate the diverse religious and cultural landscapes of the Indian Ocean. He established good relations with Muslim traders and leaders in the regions he visited, and his voyages helped to strengthen the already thriving trade networks that connected China to the Islamic world. However, despite the grandeur and success of these voyages, they came to an abrupt end after the death of the Yongle Emperor. Subsequent emperors of the Ming dynasty were less interested in maritime exploration. They turned their focus inward, concerned more with defending China's borders from nomadic invasions and consolidating power within the empire. As a result, the vast fleet was decommissioned, the records of the voyages were neglected or even destroyed, and China's naval capabilities were allowed to decay. For centuries, Zheng He's voyages were largely forgotten in China, and they remained virtually unknown in the West. It wasn't until modern historians began to rediscover the Ming dynasty's records that the full scale of Zheng He's accomplishments became clear. Today, Zheng He is celebrated in China as a symbol of the country's historical strength and influence, and his legacy is increasingly recognized around the world. The controversy, fact versus myth. But there's a twist to this tale. For many years, Western scholars were skeptical of the claims made about Zheng He's voyages. Could China really have built ships that large? Could they have reached as far as Africa, or even, as some have speculated, the Americas? These questions were often met with doubt, fueled by a Eurocentric view of history that underestimated the technological and navigational capabilities of non-European civilizations. However, the discovery of artifacts, records, and even the remains of shipyards used to construct these enormous vessels have provided compelling evidence that the stories of Zheng He's voyages were not exaggerated. While some of the more outlandish claims, like reaching the Americas, remain speculative, there is no doubt that Zheng He's fleet was a marvel of engineering and that his voyages were a testament to China's power during the Ming dynasty. So what can we learn from Zheng He's story? First, it reminds us that history is often more complex and global than we might think. The story of exploration isn't just a European story, it's a human story, with contributions from many different cultures and civilizations. Second, Zheng He's voyages show us the importance of diplomacy, cultural exchange, and the peaceful projection of power. While Europe's age of exploration led to conquest and colonization, Zheng He's missions were focused on diplomacy and establishing mutual respect among nations. They show us that it's possible to be powerful without being oppressive, to explore without exploiting. Finally, Zheng He's story challenges us to rethink our assumptions about the past. History is full of forgotten heroes and overlooked accomplishments. By rediscovering these stories, we gain a fuller, richer understanding of our shared human experience. Zheng He's voyages may have ended nearly 600 years ago, but their legacy continues to inspire. They remind us of a time when China led the world in exploration, when ships sailed across oceans not just for riches or conquest, but for knowledge, friendship, and the betterment of all humankind. Once again, thanks for watching. If you are curious and interested, click the subscribe button to sail through history with Professor Ubi. Remember, stay curious.